everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our second episode of Healthy Simplified Mind, Body, Spirit. I'm Suzanne Grennan here with
Mike Keenan, and of course, as always, Christian with us, our engineer. How you doing tonight, Christian?
Good, guys. It's been so long. How you doing?
I know, it's been a long week, right?
Yeah, it's been a long week.
Always love seeing you with that big smile of yours.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you.
And what a nice studio he has here, right?
Excellent.
Isn't this a great place to do
It
our
is.
podcast? Fantastic.
So much to look at. Great.
Yep. Well, again, thanks for joining us this week. I think we're going to really hit you up with some really good information. Last week was just kind of a little overview, kind of, just turn the pot on to start boiling, so to say, and
Give you food for thought.
right. There you go. So this week, as we promised, we're going to be hitting you up with some nutrition. But again, Suzanne and I are always out there doing our research and stuff. And I came across a very interesting article this week. As a matter of fact, it was on the news in a couple different news segments and different, news broadcasts or whatever you want to call it. And one of the things they're talking about is how skipping breakfast contributes to people gaining weight. And there's a lot of credible research behind that, and there's a lot of reasons behind it, right? So what do we talk about when we talk about nutrition? We talk about people having their blood sugar balanced, right?
Correct.
Because when you have your blood sugar balanced, it allows you to think a little more clearly. Remember, the brain gets about 50% of all available blood sugar at any given time. So if your blood sugar starts to drop a little low, what does the brain do? The brain starts to, the red flags start going up. The sirens in your head start going off, right? So, unfortunately, what a lot of people do is when they skip breakfast and their blood sugar drops, they tend to eat whatever's available. So,
Well, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
So when
Let's
we
get into a
talk
little
about
conversation.
breakfast,
Right.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a huge breakfast person, but actually, what's the time frame? Does you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Wouldn't you
exactly.
think it would affect like what time you rise or whatever? You know
Sure.
what I mean? What time was your last meal at night?
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you as far as the blood sugar because
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have low blood sugar. So
And it's funny because low blood sugar affects different people at different times of the day. Like we also deal a lot with intermittent fasting, which is why I really wanted to bring this up a little bit more.
Correct.
Because we do encourage our people, and when we talk to people, to participate in intermittent fasting because it allows them to burn more stored body fat for a longer period of time. When you break the fast is really up to you. I think you made a very good point with that. And how you break the fast, okay? So you want to have a meal that's based more in good sources of protein, healthy fats,
correct.
carbohydrates, and you want to rebalance out your blood sugar. But that doesn't have to happen till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or even 11 o'clock. And then, again, there's a lot of people who can go to bed by 10 o'clock at night. And there's other people who work late. Maybe they work a little later. So, again, you can break that fast. But we like to talk about preemptive eating. Eating at a set time so you keep your blood sugar stable for a longer period of time so that you don't run into the convenience store and just grab whatever you can get your hands on. The other problem is, like, you and I both work in situations where we don't have a big fancy kitchen at our workplace. So we have to make sure that we bring food with us so that we don't run down the block to 7-Eleven or
And I'm
Wawa.
going to tell you, that is key.
Mhm.
All right, I want to tell you, when I travel, whether I'm going on the airplane or anything, and you can't bring your water bottle, but you can bring an orange, an apple, even sometimes I bring cheese, you know what I mean, whatever to substantiate me. But the key point, like you're saying, what I've done now to help myself is I don't have time in the morning. I'm sure everybody's running around, especially if you have kids and this and that. Like I said, I'm crazy rushing out the door. So what I found what works best for me is my protein drink in the morning.
Absolutely.
And then as I'm driving to work, or whether you're sitting in a bus or whatever it is you're doing, you can drink that protein drink. And now you have your first meal and put whatever you want in it. Now, if you want to put your fruit, your veggies, or whether you drink a vegan shake, it's the best thing you can do to power yourself.
I couldn't agree more. for those who know me, I'm in a fitness studio. My first client usually walks in around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm really not hungry to eat at 6 in the morning or 5:30, whatever. So what I do is I do exactly what you say. I take that protein shake, I put it in a mason jar, I stick it in my cooler bag with one of those frozen blocks that you can buy at the convenience stores, or whatever. So it stays cold. So if I don't drink until 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm good to go. And it's good nutrition. It has healthy fats, proteins, enough carbs to sustain me, and and I can even drink that while I'm doing a client. And you could probably do the same thing.
I do.
So don't skip breakfast. Break your fast with something healthy. And we're going to spend a little bit of time today, because that's our topic of the week, is what is nutrition?
Correct.
Okay. So Christian, why don't you hit us up with that first slide, and everybody's going to get a chance to see where we're going with this.
All right, so we're going to start off, with healthy proteins. Most of you probably know what they are, but the healthiest, if you can buy organic, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
Are you promised that it's organic, but at least take the risk for it, so there's not too many toxins and everything else in it, because we know what's in the air, at the soil now. We have to be careful. So your grass-fed beef is the best, organic pork, again, free-range fowl, so, not too many hormones being put into these animals, wild-caught fish, eggs. I do buy organic. You don't have to. Again, they have free-range. Eggs as well. Plant-based protein shakes that, we talked about, and our whey-based shakes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's called a power punch.
Yeah, when we I just want to bring up the plant-based versus the whey, because a lot of times people will come to us, and we're in we're in the health and wellness field,
right?
And they'll say, well, your whey-based shake has 23 grams of protein in it. Your plant-based only has 20. Why is that? Well, the reason being is that plant-based protein is more easily absorbed and utilized by the body, right? So you don't need as much. And the nice thing is we're going to talk about things like hemp protein and brown rice protein and pea protein. These, if you do your research, these are the 3 most bioavailable plant sources of protein. So when you're out there looking at protein shakes, look for a plant-based shake that has all 3 of those in them.
I even add extra. I add extra hemp.
Okay.
Chia seed, extra chia. You just have to carry a toothbrush.
That's okay. And the nice thing is that clients will come to me and say, I looked at that grass-fed beef you told me to get, and it was an extra $1 a pound. And I said, well, how many people are going in on that pound with you? Even if there's 2, that's 50 cents extra per person. I said, you spend more than that on a cup of coffee every day.
Exactly. So pay the extra $1 for the beef and don't buy the Oreos.
There you go. All right, Christian, hit us up with the next slide. All right, now this is a question I get all the time with carbohydrates, because everyone's afraid to eat carbs, or I'm on a low-carb diet and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to have carbohydrate in my diet, okay, but what is a good carb and what's not such a good carb? Okay, so if we turn the clock back 100 years ago, a lot of the things that are refined carbohydrates were not available. Or if they were very expensive and they were hard to come by, so people didn't get a lot of them, okay? So like wheat and flour and grains, okay? These are things that, and all the refined carbohydrates I'm going to talk about here, they're refined to the fact that they release their energy very, very quickly. And when any food releases its energy very, very quickly, it causes an insulin response. Insulin is a hormone that helps to store sugar, because carbohydrates break down into glucose or sugar.
That's right.
Okay, so if you have too much energy being released at one time, you get what's called an insulin spike. And insulin loves to store sugar. But think about our muscle cells, because that's where a lot of it's going. Muscles only have a certain amount of storage capacity. They can only hold so much glucose. Once they get filled, that sugar has to go somewhere, right? But one of the things we're going to let you know about is that your fat cells have an unlimited ability to expand to accommodate that sugar.
That's crazy.
Okay, there's no limit because you can see. I
Wow.
mean, I'm not picking on him, but you've seen people that are 600-700 pounds. Okay.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So your
Now
fats, your
explains
fat
it.
cells can hold as much sugar as you give your body. Now, the other thing you have to know about why it's that much worse as far as weight gain is for every molecule of sugar that your body stores, it stores 3 molecules of water.
Wow.
So it's a 4 for
Wow.
1, right? So
Yeah.
that's why when people lose weight very quickly, they're like, "Oh, I just lost 5 pounds of fat." No, you lost about a pound of fat. You lost 4 pounds of water, because all that
Correct.
water that was holding on was being retained by that sugar. And there's a couple other things up there. Like people say, "Well, fruit's good." Yeah, eat natural fruit. Don't eat dried fruit. And even pour honey's up there. Honey is refined food. Okay, it's not the natural thing that the bee ate to make the honey. It was manufactured in the hive. So it is
Wow.
a refined carbohydrate. So you want to use it sparingly. Okay, next slide, please. So now we drop down the glycemic index. We just came from very high, and now we're into your starches. Okay, now starches, I want you to think of starches as a spark plug in an engine. A spark plug weighs about 6 ounces. An engine can weigh 400 pounds, right, in your car? So you don't need a huge spark to get the engine to work. So when we talk about weight loss or people eating their starches, you only need a little bit. A half of an average size sweet potato or white potato is enough to get you going. A half a cup of brown rice. Some interesting things up there like peas and squash and zucchini. These are all starches. Corn and carrots. Steel cut oatmeal, very good for you. It's better than the 5-minute oatmeal because steel cut takes about 45 minutes to cook. And also beans and turnips. Everybody says, well, if I combine, rice and beans to get my protein, because we just came off of protein a couple seconds ago, the problem is with eating it as a whole food is to get the amount of protein you're looking for, you're eating an awful lot of calories. And we have to try to control that. Let's drop down to the next slide for me, and we're going to start talking about fruits. Okay, so now we have less, lower on the glycemic index. We have foods that are starting to have more water and fiber than sugar. And that's why the fruits drop down so low. So now you got apples, bananas, pears, and so forth. Tomato and avocado, they're both fruits as well. And then the very last slide you're going to hit us with, Christian, is the fibrous carbohydrates. It's going to come up in a second, guys. No big deal. Okay. So the vegetables. And this is where you want to spend the bulk.
These are key, Michael.
Yes. What one of the things is these are your foods that are loaded with vitamins and minerals, right? And these are the kind of things that we could start to eat in abundance with very, very low sugar and very, very, very low calories. Matter of fact, a pound of broccoli only has 60 calories. So when we start to put our plates together, as we start to talk about food in the next couple of weeks, this is where the bulk of your food on your plate should be coming from, is from these fibrous carbohydrates.
And that's the key. The key word is fiber.
Yes,
too.
fiber. Okay, go ahead and hit the next slide for us.
All right, so now we're going to talk about fats. Fats are very important for your diet. Okay, it helps everything work. And your fats, your saturated fats, really in two forms. You have saturated and unsaturated. One is solid at room temperature. The other is liquid. But it's stable at higher temperatures. So be careful. And your certain oils can, work at a higher degree.
Right. And there's certain oils that you want to cook with versus ones you don't want to. Right.
So you have to be careful with coconut oil as far as very high temperatures, but it's very beneficial for you because some of them can raise LDL. All right. And some raise HDL. Your LDL is your low density.
Right. The
lipids.
LDL is the one that when the doctor gives you your blood report, he says you got to lower your LDLs. They're too high.
Worry about it. But your HDLs are good for you, okay? But the fats promote immune health. They protect your liver from alcohol and medications.
Right.
All right. Your liver releases everything, breaks things down. But there's some saturated fats that can increase your prostate and colon cancer. So again, you have to be careful what you're eating and how you're eating it. So some of the fats are found in beef, pork, fowl, milk, cream, butter, cheeses, coconut oil, cashews, macadamians, walnuts, a lot of your nuts, your plant-based oils. So use them wisely. We're actually, there's so much to say about fats that we can't really bring
We're
it
going to
on
have
the
to do the
table
show
today.
just on that.
Yeah, it's almost a show in itself. So with that, Christian, we're going to ask you to move the slide.
To kind of a finish with the coconut oil is that
Excellent.
It's excellent source, and they're using it to help people with Alzheimer's disease because a lot of these people went on very low fat diets in the 60s and 70s, and they actually caused early onset dementia. The monosaturated fats is something we're a little more familiar with. It's liquid at the room temperature as opposed to solid, but it will turn solid if you put it in the refrigerator, so you don't put your olive oil in the refrigerator, otherwise you can't pour it out, right?
Exactly.
Tremendous health benefits when consumed raw. Things like avocado, olive oil, almonds, and hazelnuts. And it really does help people to lose weight because it helps to reduce that insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when the sugar can't get into the muscle cells. So this kind of helps with that, and it will help you to lose weight in moderation. And I know for me, the fat I use in my shakes every day is I put a half of avocado in my protein shakes, and it makes it nice and creamy, and it tastes delicious. We'll take the next slide, please, Christian.
So your polyunsaturated fats is basically your omega-3, okay? Pretty much, that's in liquid form. It has health benefits when taken raw as well. Now, there's actually 3 main omega-3s. You have your EPA, your DNA, and your LAA. But the EPA and DHA, they raise, again, your HDL, your good cholesterol, which helps to reduce obesity and your metabolic syndrome. So your metabolic syndrome is actually, it's a cluster of conditions that can, help increase the risk of cardiovascular, decrease, your cardiovascular issues and disease like a stroke, and it also helps with the prevention of diabetes. They protect against oxidation stress. So they're key. They're found in cold water fish, krill, salmon, shellfish, plant and nut oils. And again, like I said, I love my chia seeds, flaxseed, walnuts. So remember that these are very beneficial to you, and especially someone that is tinkering on diabetes. All right. So
let's go to the next one.
The wise.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Go ahead, flip the slide, and I'll just throw this in. I just had my DNA test. Matter of fact, we both had a DNA test done, and my family history has a high incidence of heart disease. Right, everyone in my family's either died from old age, God bless them, or from heart attack.
Wow.
So when I got my DNA back, it said that I'm also prone to inflammation, and it suggested I increase my omega-3s to help with chronic inflammation. With the polyunsaturated omega-6s, there's some benefits to that too, but in the standard American diet, the problem is that we have too much omega-6 in relation to the omega-3s.
And why is that?
Well, because it's found in so many different processed foods,
So it's more processed?
That,
right?
and just the type of oil. Like, soybeans is not really found here in the United States. As a matter of fact, most of us were only like second or third generation have ever had soybean in our diet. And if you go to the supermarket, you look on the shelf for the salad dressings and stuff, you really want to try to pick something that has an olive oil base to it, because we just talked about omega-3s
Correct.
and the monosaturated fats and how healthy they are for you. But soybean oil is in everything. And so I try to counsel my clients to stay away from the vegetable oils because they're so highly processed. And the other thing, in light with this is the trans fats and the hydrogenated oils.
Right.
With all those mass-produced baked goods you see out there, the cupcakes and the other snack foods and the chips and stuff, they all use they want to hold that food together, so they use hydrogenated oils in
Right.
order to hold it as a solid, and it's not natural. So the problem is we're nothing more than just giant barcode readers as it goes through our gut, and if something is not recognized by our body, it doesn't know what to do. So it either treats it as a toxin and attacks
Right.
it, right, autoimmune disease, or it throws it into storage so it can figure
Yeah,
out
it
what to do with
stores
it
it.
later. So let's take the next slide, please.
You know, and it's crazy, Mike, because I guess it can get confusing when you talk about soybean oil, because I know a lot of people think, well, soybeans are good for you.
Yeah, we were taught that probably in the 80s and
Yeah.
90s. Everybody was throwing soy into their diet until all these high incidents of cancer and heart disease started coming out. And they're like, we got to find what the cause of this is. And unfortunately, soy is really a bigger problem. I'll give some references to that in the future when we start talking
Correct.
about soy. But let's get on to what these things actually do in the body. I think it's important for people to know.
All right, so, you know, again, why protein is so important to you. Okay, it's a building block. It's a building food, you know, and it gives nutrition to help with your hemoglobin. You know, it helps build muscle growth, repair muscle. It gives strength to your connective tissues, which is your ligaments, your tendons, your hair, your nails, and most important too is your immune system. All right, and it affects your hormones and enzymes. So it can also, as a benefit, again, it converted in the liver to create glucose, which is your blood sugar again. So we're getting
Exactly.
back to that, to feed your brain and your nervous system.
Right. It's a great backup system because you can only stabilize your blood sugar for about 3 hours and it starts to drop off. So what happens is if the brain needs more sugar, it can convert protein
Yeah.
in the liver to glucose for the sole purpose of feeding your brain and nervous system. Let's take the next slide. Let's talk a little bit about the function of carbohydrates because they're really important. Now, the brain gets 50% of all available blood sugars we were just talking about. So blood sugar stability is really important, and you get sugar predominantly from your carbohydrates. It's a very usable form of glucose. It's no blood sugar. Not only does it feed your brain and nervous system, but your muscles also use it as well. Again, this is the spark that gets you to burn stored body fat and oxygen. So we always say that fat is burned in a carbohydrate flame. And that's the main reason why you need glucose. You need it to run the system so that you can burn your stored body fat. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about fats. So the heart is 100% oxidative. It can only burn dietary fat. And again, the muscles like to use fat with oxygen to be burned for energy. It's needed for the absorption of your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. And it fills the fat cells to insulate the body from warmth. So that's why
There you
I'm never
go.
cold. Let's take the next slide, please.
Okay. Who loves to take their vitamins? I do.
Every day.
Yeah, vitamins are key for your health, very key. And you have different types of vitamins, okay? You have your fat-soluble vitamins, which is your A, D, E, and K. And there's actually a vitamin K2 as well. And your water-soluble vitamins are your C's and B's. So they will pass for your body a little bit faster, okay? They're not going to store in your fat like the other vitamins will. So I want to talk about the B's first because they're my favorite. And again, B's help with so many things. Now you can look on the screen and see how many different types of B's B's there are. And they each have different properties that help us. I'm just going to hit on a few because we don't want to take up too much time with that. We're going to get into it later on. But basically, the B's are so key for brain development and function. They can influence your mood because it'll raise your levels of serotonin and keep them stable. And also, they are great for your nerve function. And I'm going to tell you, when I was in college, one of the things was, because again, when you're facing stress and whatnot, I found out I was breaking out with these big blind pimples, no lie. They hurt like you can't believe. And I mean, at one point, I almost stuck a pin in one just to see if I could, ooze it out somehow
Ouch.
because it was that bad, and that's how crazy I am. But I realized I had run out of my B complex vitamins. So once I started taking them again, it all went away. So that's how well they affect me. Now your C's are awesome because they have been scientifically proven to benefit your strong antioxidant phase of your body, where it helps against disease, it helps against cough, colds, whatever, and it builds up, your immunity. It helps battle high blood pressure. Can you picture that? I never knew that.
Yep.
And it also helps fight heart disease risk factors. It improves, which I didn't know this either, iron absorption, okay? And it helps prevent blood uric acid, which prevents gout,
That's right.
So I guess there's a lot of C in cherries, right? Because people eat cherries for that.
Yep.
But one of the biggest things, too, that I found out, C really helps protect your memory.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, And it also boosts your immunity, helping function of white blood cells. So that's what they do. But now your fat solubles, they're going to store longer. So just real quick, A is great for anti-inflammatory benefits. There's actually 2 different types. We'll get into that later, but that's key. It's great for eyesight, vision. D is very, very important for your body in the absorption of calcium, which is bone development.
Right. Absolutely.
Again,
Don't want to get rickets.
Yep. Immune function, and again, that is your oily, right?
Right.
Your fish, your salmon, your sardines. Then you have eggs, tuna, and believe it or not, shiitake mushrooms.
There you go.
There you go.
Let's cook them up.
There you go. So let's go to E and K. So E, which we kind of know, it really helps your skin, but it protects from damaging radicals, and that's why it's beneficial. And it also helps your immune system. It keeps your blood vessels healthy. And real quick, K activates protein for blood clotting. So when you cut yourself, you get injured. I mean, if you don't have that K in there, you could bleed out.
That's right.
And that's not healthy, right? But it also binds the calcium in your bones and tissues. Okay, and K2 reduces blood vessel calcification.
Right.
It also helps support bone, your skin, the brain, and believe it or not, helps prostate health.
Well,
so
there you
that's
go.
a key one for guys.
Yes, that's especially when you get to be my age. The K2, I'll just touch on that real quick. There's an old adage in the medical field that men have heart attacks, but women die of heart attacks. And one of the things that Suzanne touched on, which is very, very important, is the calcification of the blood vessels. That's called arteriosclerosis, hardening of your arteries.
Right.
So if we don't have K2, which is a cofactor, which I'm going to talk about in a second, a little bit more about minerals and cofactors. Cofactors in the body are kind of like traffic cops. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and switch to the next slide so people can see a little bit of what we're talking about. So think about calcium coming into the body. It can either be channeled to muscle, which it does need to go to because calcium is important for muscle contractions, but it also can be channeled to the bones for building healthy, strong bones. What happens is when too much of it goes to the muscles, it causes arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. But it can also get into the heart muscle itself. And if it does affect the heart muscle, that's a heart attack you can't come back from.
There you go.
So that's why the K2 is so important. To try to channel that calcium towards the bone versus the muscle. There's 74 essential vitamins and minerals out there, so we really can't spend too much time on them. The most common are things like calcium, potassium, sodium, magnesium. They help with the metabolism of our macronutrients such as glucose and sugar, carbohydrates. Cofactors direct those minerals to proper body tissues and structures such as K2. Let's go ahead to, I think that's probably our last slide. Yeah, it is. We're back again. Well, we only got a couple minutes left, so we're just going to kind of wrap it up. So I want to throw out a challenge of the week. You threw one out. I'll throw one out this week. Let's do 3 things to try to make some changes in our life. Let's try to pick some free-range, grass-fed, wild-caught proteins this week.
Let us know if you taste a difference or not.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and try to eat more fibrous carbohydrates on our plates, more broccoli and salads and spinach and so forth. And let's start to identify, where am I getting my fats from? Am I getting them from avocado, or am I using corn oil, which we just said wasn't very good for you, right? We'd like to also invite you to like, share, comment, or host a watch party on this. You might have somebody in your family who's suffering from high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. Go ahead and share it with them. You know what we're going to do? We're going to give out prizes for people who like, comment, and share on our broadcasts. Come visit us. We're going to be at the Seafood Festival next week. Right. And walking around, talking to some of the vendors, see what they're selling. What do you like to eat at seafood? What's your favorite thing?
Oh, I love seafood.
Okay.
Give me that omega-3, baby.
Well, do you do shellfish, or
I do shellfish?
Lobster
roll?
roll?
Honestly, I used to love lobster and shrimp, but I'm really now like a tuna and a mahi type of girl, and I love it blackened.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's my fave.
I just love salmon. Just put it on a plate, raw or cooked. It doesn't matter. I'll eat it either way. All right, so we're just going to kind of wrap things up. Next week, we want you to come back out. We're going to have some information about how hormones are affected by the food you eat. Hormones, what do hormones do? They speed things up in the body, or they slow things down. They affect everything we do, right?
Exactly.
So I just want to thank everybody for coming out this week. Suzanne, I think we had a great time. I hope people got a lot out of what we talked about.
And this really was a lot to throw at you. So again, come back with any comments, anything else you need to know. Also, don't be afraid to do a little bit of research on your own. Follow up with things that we have said, and you can even get more enlightenment from that. Right.
And we're gonna follow up on all our comments. And we'll answer the questions, and let's get a dialogue going here, guys. Let's have some fun with this, okay?
Exactly.
So, Christian, thank you again for helping us out this week.
Hey,
and
no problem, guys. No problem.
Hopefully we all got a good education. I want to thank Suzanne for all the time and effort she put into this. This was tremendous.
Thank you, Mike, as well.
All right.
You're my lead man.
All right, so come back next week, and we'll fill you in on how hormones enter into this whole nutrition process. All right, until next week, take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.
Yep. Stay healthy.